Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022 at 8:31 a.m. And before we start, we have a couple of adjustments to make to the agenda. One, we have an item to add, which is in front of you for a second tree warden bid. And also we're going to defer the action on the town light item number 9 for 2 weeks. So we amend the agenda to add an item and defer an item as mentioned.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Minutes from last meeting, August 9th. Any comments or corrections?
None.
None here.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Public comments. I don't see anybody in the room from the public. They're all town employees, but is there anybody on this is a hybrid meeting. I should have mentioned, so members of the public are welcome to provide comments on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Comments may be submitted electronically by email to bosdistribution@newcanaanct.gov, and we will read them before the end of the meeting. Or anyone on by Zoom can comment or
See anybody with their hands up?
we have Russ, who's on by Zoom.
Russ and Bill Wilson.
Okay, good. Moving to item 3. Fire repair services. Chief, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Would like to recommend approving the quote for Gowan's Night Company, Watertown, for necessary repairs on the tanker. Went in for service on a transmission issue, which is on the quote, and we're doing our annual service and found some pump issues that needed to get addressed and brake issues. So the estimate is around estimate that came in around 20,000, but it was truly an estimate until they get into that. So just to be safe, requesting the no more than 25,000 for recommended repairs based on what they find.
Any questions?
How old is the tanker?
Tanker is 2008, so it's 15 years old right now. So it's this is, from what I could see, is one of the most significant services since we've had it. So
What's its useful life?
25 years.
Okay.
Is this in the budget, Albie, or is this one?
I do have the funds in the budget. Gallons is not our normal service company for this truck, so we did not have a PO already set for that. I could not get it in a timely fashion to our normal service place. So it's the other company that we use for other apparatus.
So how soon will this get done?
They are they have it up there now working on some of the transmission issue. But once I give them the okay, it's already a part ready to go.
Okay, good.
What do we do when this is under service in terms of the need for, do we use another piece of equipment?
We have another engine running in place, but when the 3,000 gallons this one carries of water compared to what runs in its place, I keep my fingers crossed. I like to have more water on wheels
Sure.
when we get there, but it's we do have another apparatus running in its place with water on it.
Thank you.
It's our hose wagon, so it's.
And how many gallons
The one that's running is
Backup.
500,
as opposed to 3,000?
3,000.
Okay.
So mutual aid, we still have mutual aid coverage and.
Yep.
So I move we approve this request from fire.
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Have a good day.
You too.
Bill is on by remote access.
Good morning,
Morning, Bill.
you guys, let's see here.
Your first item is the Wavy Tea House repairs, item number 4.
Right, so we'd like to get approval to move forward with this work for the tea house. Oops, you guys here?
We can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what just happened here. Okay, you can hear me. All right, so we'd like to add, treat this as a change order. We currently have a contract in place with Alden Billy, who's doing work at the mansion for us right now. Alden Billy has all the supplies in his stock to do the work on the tea house. And we currently have funding in the budget for this work.
This is mainly the roof.
Yeah, it's the roof and the structure itself needs a little cleaning up. Kids over years have done a little vandalism to it. But it's gonna be mostly all roof. It's missing tiles. It's coming apart a little bit. It definitely needs work.
This is where you have your bench.
Right.
Where is this? So this is the,
Tea house, the
sorry,
gazebo, whatever you,
the gazebo. Okay,
Bill calls it the tea house.
okay.
Well, I think that was the official name of it, a tea house back in the day. But it's a
Okay,
gazebo, tea house.
got it. Thank you.
It's in desperate need of repair. If we don't do it, we're gonna lose it. So
Needs to be done.
needs to be done. Any questions for Bill? I move, we approve the request from Public Works to enter into contract with Alton Bailey to, for a total of $62,100, which includes a $8,100 contingency to repair the Wavy Tea House as described by Bill. Second,
Second,
for the discussion, all in favor?
None here.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Go again, Bill, for number 5, exterior lampposts and fixtures.
Right, so we have, I don't know if you have a spreadsheet there, we have 3 projects requiring the lamp post. Each project has already been funded. We went out to bid for these lamp post fixtures, received 2 bids back, and F&M Electric was our lower bidder. We're actually going to buy the fixtures directly from the supply house. And then once we have them in possession, we'll come back to you folks for approval on the installs. As you know, the world's a little crazy. Trying to get some of this stuff takes a little time. So I figured let's get all the parts in our possession, and then we'll schedule installing the stuff. The one of the project is all the fixtures at the train station in the parking lot. This is not the lumberyard lot. This is the actual train station lot. We need to replace those. We lost a couple during the storm that fell over. They're probably 40 years old, I think now. And they're time to replace them. The second project is the Wavy Park. This is the beginning of our lamppost replacement project up there. And we're going to upgrade the current ones up there to the same ones that are on our streets, so that we have one lamppost in place for all our locations instead of having multiple different manufacturers and brands and what have you. And then the third one is for Tiger Man's. He's doing some work up on Main Street, and he wants to continue with his string of lights up Main Street. Any questions on these?
On Main Street, Bill or Tiger, what are we continuing? I mean, where is it not done?
From the firehouse up to God's Acre.
Good morning. Several years ago, we installed new sidewalks or replaced the sidewalks from the town hall up to the end of
Right.
up to the end of Main Street where Park Street reaches. We put in conduit and bases at that time. We just didn't have enough money for lamp posts. So the thought is to extend the lamp post all the way up to God's Acre, basically. So from God's Acre down.
Good.
It's about 6 lights.
The six are 37,000. Waving, we got similar amount, but the railroad. How many lights are at the railroad?
There's 12 lights over at the railroad, and those are totally different. Those are they're 14 feet high, and they got the big lollipop sweep on them.
Do these come out of the railroad budget?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes, they do. Yeah, that's DOT money, railroad fund.
So
Okay.
the 72, the whole thing, the 72,000?
Correct. There's $95,000 budget. The 72,000 will come out of railroad fund, and any money to install them will come out of the railroad fund.
Any further
So-
questions?
Yeah, so just the differences, for instance, for the railroad, that is, you had mentioned that you're gonna come back to us in terms of the installation. Is that covered in what you've listed, for instance, the 95,000 for the railroad fund, or is that a different amount for installation
Well, the 95,000 is the total budget.
total?
So within that, we purchased a lamp post. Hopefully it's the 68,000. We don't have any contingency. And then the balance up to 95 will be there to do the install.
Okay,
Yeah.
So for the replacement of some of these lampposts, is there any useful life for the ones that are going out? Is it they're just what happens to them in terms of replacement?
The ones at the railroad station are pretty rough shape.
Okay, there's just
Uh-huh.
no recycling opportunity.
Oh, I'll take any parts off them I can salvage to
Yeah.
keep our own inventory if I can. But we're gonna go to a new LED. They're gonna look the same over there, just that they're gonna be more efficient LED lighting. Then just aesthetically much nicer looking. The ones that are over there, the bottoms are rotting away on them. And that's why we lost two of them when the wind took them down. So we want to get them changed out before we have any more serious problems over there.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions. I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with F&M Electric as described by Bill for a total of $146,691. Do I have a second?
Second here. Hey, Bill, how come the railroad station segment doesn't have an LED kits component?
They come already with the LEDs.
Okay, good.
I can order those directly from the factory LEDs.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, my second still stands.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That's unanimous. Playhouse Theater interior renovation, Bill.
Okay, so now we're getting into the fun stuff here. We have architects and engineers already been retained, approved and retained to do the design work for the Playhouse. And the Playhouse, we have to do some selective demolition there so that we get the engineers and architects into some areas that are kind of unknown at the moment. Mostly above the ceiling. There's a 5-foot interstitial space above that hanging ceiling where a lot of equipment is. And we don't know the condition. There's no way to get there. So what we'd like to do is we have to get all the seats out of the way in order to put scaffolding in there. And so we'd like to get this going. Once that piece is done, then the engineers and architects will get up in there to document existing conditions to see what we have to do going forward.
And this is partly to install a new fire suppression system.
Well, there's that, and with all the ductwork, mechanical up there for the air conditioning, heating, it's
Right.
all up there.
Right.
And there's a lot of unknowns above the ceiling, and that's what we want to open up.
Okay. And also, okay,
And one, so if you want, I can do two at a time, basically. The
Yeah,
so what we'll do is then we have to unbolt all the seats to get those out of the way. And our next item for approval would be for cash removal to remove those into a trailer.
yeah, we expect the plan with Cinema Labs is to install, they're going to install new seats, but just in case we need to have a contingency plan, we're going to keep the seats for a while. They don't have much market value. Ultimately, we probably could dispose of them, but we're going to store them until we know exactly where the project stands by December.
Right. We want to have the new seats in possession before we throw away old seats, just in case.
Questions for Bill on either project?
None.
No.
Hey, Bill, what's the timing of this?
Tomorrow.
That's true.
You guys give the-
We're
you
moving
give the-
forward.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I'll have Kevin sign the contracts tomorrow when I get back in, and they're ready to start moving on this. And right now, it looks like the Labor Day, day after Labor Day, we'll have some trailers out there to get all the seats loaded up on and out of there. So,
Okay,
Good.
moving on up. I move we approve the requests from Public Works, one for the moving and storage of the seats as described by Bill, and secondly, the interior renovation of the ceiling elements. $43,470 for the interior renovation and $22,255 for the moving and storage of the seats and the opening up of the ceiling. So
A second.
further discussion? All in favor?
None here.
Aye. You're done, Bill.
thank you very much, people.
You're welcome.
Back to Tiger.
Morning again. So this item is for miscellaneous repairs in and around the downtown area of our brick sidewalks. Historically, we spent about anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year on miscellaneous repairs for areas where the sidewalk is either dipping or falling below the curb line. Other areas where it's in disrepair, we either get a report of someone tripping or we notice it on a walkthrough. And in the past, we've asked Peter Lonnie to go out and give us a quote for $5,000. Kevin signs it, and then we go forward with it. I felt it was probably better to bring it forward and say, okay, at $10,000 with a $1,500 contingency, since we work on a time and material basis with them, to just put it out there so we can come out and do some of the work. And then if we see others, we'll come back and have this number increased. But you know, given the fact that we were kind of going 5, 5, 5, felt it was better to bring it to the selectmen and say, hey, it's 10 or more. So he's done very, very good work for us in the past. He gives us a great price. And he's available when needed, which is probably the most important. So we'd like to go forward with this contract of $10,000 with a contingency of $1,500 for a total of $11,500. And we have the monies in this year's budget.
What's the length of sidewalks that we have in this town?
Just under 20 miles,
20 miles
20 miles
of
yeah,
sidewalks.
of sidewalks.
And how do problems come to your attention, Tiger? It just word of mouth, or people calling, or you guys
All the
proactively
above,
going out and
all the above.
Right.
We take walks through the downtown
do a
area.
20-mile walk through the.
No, I have ridden all the sidewalks on my bike a couple of times, just to see and look, but mostly it's a walk through the downtown area, residential complaints, our guys out there taking a look, you know, when they're out there working on something else that way. And then we have a very good, sidewalk survey network of people who take a look and tell us things. Once they tell us, we go out pretty much immediately to take a look, because now we're on notice, and then we go and fix it as soon as possible.
Is this amount for both labor and the bricks themselves? Do they do the?
It's primarily just the labor, since the bricks are usually fine as they've
Okay.
just settled, you know. We do have a number of brick now. We just received the delivery a couple days ago in stock. So we have
Oh, so the
availability.
bricks came in.
Bricks came in. Yeah, finally. Yeah. The last Wednesday,
Get an
Thursday.
extra inventory if needed, right?
Correct. Yeah, I
okay.
like to keep some on hand. We have an inventory of granite. We have an inventory of our specific sidewalk brick, and then other items that are necessary. Yeah.
Is there any repair ever, if, you know, we're doing for the road repair with Eversource and Aquarian, et cetera? Do they extend, when they ever participate in that or help fund that, does that include the sidewalks as well, or just the roads?
The sidewalks as well. So last year for the work in front of Main Street, they gave us $13,400 to repair, based upon a quote that we had gotten from Peter Lonnie to repair all where the tie-ins were that came into the brick sidewalk.
Yeah.
They paid for all those repairs.
They did, okay.
Yeah. And then we've got Eversource coming in tomorrow to repair the sidewalk out in the back of Town Hall here, that one little piece where the tie-in came in
Yeah.
for gas here. And then they'll be going to South School, because that's the other area of concrete where the concrete walk has been done. But they do go around in any of the areas that they have came across a sidewalk with, they'll come back and repair. We keep track of them. We send them pictures of it, and then they come back and repair it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question that came up last night.
Sure.
When tree limbs overhang sidewalks and become obstructions, do we go in and trim them? or
Yes.
is-
Yes, we either ask the resident to come back and take care of it. Specifically on long hedge lines, we ask the resident to take care of the hedge line, because if we'd like their landscaper to take care of it in case there's a problem with the work itself. But if it's tree limbs specifically, yes, we take care of it. Right now, we have the Beautification League and the tree warden have been walking South Avenue, and they have a list of trees that they feel need to be pruned and limbed up a little bit, because they're starting to grow out in, you know, and taller residents have a problem. So.
Okay, no further questions. I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Peter Lanny for a total of $11,500 for miscellaneous repairs of various sidewalks as described by Tiger. Second,
Second,
further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do you want me to do the
We-
trees now, or?
Sure, we deferred on the number 9 for 2 weeks, and Why don't you finish up with the the two tree award? And one we added and number 11.
Yeah, so in the interim between the two meetings, the tree warden was able to go out for two successive bids. This bid was on August 11th. We received two bids, one from Olmsted, one from Mill River. It was for 14 separate locations in town. Olmsted came in at the low bid at $25,260. And we would like to have them go forward with this work. One of which is the large white oak at the bottom of by the pond at Wavy. So we'll be saving that. So the materials from that tree, and the conservancy will be doing some work with it, building some furniture and some other things for sale.
Want to take the other one too?
And then the other one is on August 19th, went out for a bid. We received exact same two bidders came back, Olmsted and Mill River. Olmsted came in at a low bid of $21,854 for 17 locations in town. Nothing specifically of note here as well.
Questions on either item?
None here.
I move we approve the requests, both requests. One is Olmsted for 25,260 and the other is with Olmsted for 21,854 as described by Tiger, the trees around town. Pruning, removal, stump removal, etc. Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Thank you.
Tiger, before you leave, let's jump to item number 12 before we turn to the ARPA items. So we've had a vacancy in the Fields Committee since the passing of Steve Banco. Fields Committee was established in 1998, 1997. And it's actually the three members were Steve, John Howe, and Jay Egan for all those years. But we felt we really ought to have a third member, and it's logical to keep this as a staff committee. They function to allocate time to various sports.
Which is about a political thing as you can think of.
And also,
Field allocation.
you know, maintaining also Title IX, you know, I've met with the committee and the superintendent and I kind of look at what they do with respect to Title IX. So,
Yep.
I thought of no better candidate than Mr. Tiger Man. So
Thank you.
any questions for?
Is there a salary associated?
Not
with
that,
it?
not that
Strictly
he has more
volunteer.
time or needs anything additional to do, but any questions about this item?
Just to clarify, it's not the Fields Building Committee, right?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
different.
It's the Fields Committee,
It's the
Fields,
Fields
right.
Committee.
created as a result of the Fields Report in 1997, where I don't know, Janet, why did the Fields Report get done?
Because there was people were fighting, you know, soccer, lacrosse, football were kind of fighting over fields time.
Oh, I see.
It's been ameliorated because of the additional new fields that we've got,
Yeah.
Mm.
which has been a huge help. But nonetheless, I mean, sports are pretty popular in town, and there's a demand for field time. And so
That's great.
I think it's important, honestly, to keep it. I like the fact
Staff.
that it's staff
Yeah.
oriented, and
We don't, so it doesn't require minutes, agenda, notification, any of the stuff. So it's,
Just staff.
as a staff committee, it doesn't even show up as a,
Right, we have
committee and-
we have a number of staff committees, the safety committee and things
Right,
that are not
right.
required to
Right.
have FOIA requirements.
thank you.
I move to approve the appointment of Tiger Man to the Fields Committee as discussed.
second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank
Tiger.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Back to ARPA. Good morning, Margaret Riley. Want to join us, and Mark Robbins, and Bill. Sorry, who's the other?
Russ.
Russ Connors, I'm sorry. Russ, you're there. Good morning. Russ is a little under the weather. But Mark, when you join? So why don't we discuss the YMCA first, since we've already discussed the other four items, and then we can come back and have a general discussion and vote on the ARPA appropriations. But anyway, the idea of the YMCA as an ARPA grantee, sub-grantee, really originated with looking at, well, first of all, you applied. But we were looking for projects that would help nonprofits who were affected by COVID, and the Y was significantly affected by COVID. Margaret, you can address that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, we've been looking, you may remember 2018, when we spent a year trying to build a cogen plant down behind the high school that would serve not only our 3 schools there, but also YMCA and Wavy Care Center. And we didn't do that. But instead we've been adding CHP to various facilities. And the number one target and beneficiary for CHP in town is YMCA, because they have 2 pools that they heat constantly, 365, 24/7, 365, and they have a big electric bill. So with that background, Margaret and the YMCA applied for ARPA funds, and Mark Robbins, who's been advising the town for 4 years now on energy conservation projects, has been working with the Y, and a proposal has been put together. And the other genesis of this was our new full-time EMD. We've been asking ourselves, what's our shelter capability for emergencies? And we say we have Lapham Center, but Lapham Center is not really a good shelter. It's a building, but it has an emergency generator, but doesn't really have any facilities to speak of. And if we're serious about an emergency shelter, we have to have something that's serious. So we've been looking at the YMCA as opposed to a school, specifically the high school or SACS, but and we visited the high school to have that comparison. And Russ can address questions about that, because we've been scoping out what's required for a shelter. What do other towns and cities do to have an emergency shelter in the event of a serious emergency?
Mhm.
We had a tabletop exercise with the state 3 or 4 months ago where we scenarioed a category 3 hurricane like 1938, and God forbid we have another category 3 hurricane, but the devastation and the amount of need for public support would be huge. And something like Sandy, which took to, so we have a need for emergency shelter, which Russ has been studying. So that's kind of the background. With that said, Russ, do you want to sort of kick off first the emergency shelter need, and then we'll move to Margaret for why we are recommending the Y as opposed to the high school?
Yeah, happy to. Don't know if you want me to share on my end or Tucker, or do you want to share on your end? What's your pleasure?
I'm going to have you share. I didn't know you wanted me to. Hang on one second.
No, that's fine. I got it. Here you go.
Okay, you're good.
So this, as discussed, we were, discussing the need for an emergency shelter for the town of Canaan. It's just something that really is required as a municipality, that we are able to do that function should the need arise in a serious emergency. So we talked about potential shelter sites. The only known building that the town has that's suitable for shelter really is the high school. SACS does have some showers, but not many, certainly not as many as the high school does. But in looking at both of the facilities, the high school as well as the YMCA has superior facilities in quantity as well as in other important areas. One of the things that's important with shelter is being able to set up control so that you have one point of entry, you're able to have accountability. And then you have to have ability to have dedicated male, female, and ideally family areas for showers and changing rooms, which the YMCA has. In particular, the family setup, the high school isn't configured for it. We would have to potentially use coaches' offices with adjacent showers and things like that. Additionally, it has abundant space, which would allow us to do multiple tiers of shelter. So if we needed to, we could use their gymnasium and shelter a couple hundred people, versus we could step it down. Potentially, if power is restored to part of town, but not another part of town, we could use smaller rooms, but yet still have the advantage of all of the other facilities that the YMCA has. It also has adjacent rooms, which are nice, where we could put what's called a quartermaster, which would be where your supplies are for things like hygiene products, diapers, things like that. It'll also have room for an office shelter manager. It has sufficient parking and of course, incredibly importantly, it's ADA compliant as a building. The high school generator currently only powers emergency lighting, the heat and hot water. And we think it also does the refrigerators, but that's about it. It is a building life support generator, right? It's designed to keep the building from freezing in the winter, and that's it. The YMCA is a site, and I think this is probably the most important thing, that's separate from schools and students. As we all know, the world has changed, and school security is essential. And our schools have done a phenomenal job of adapting and ensuring that they're secure. And, you know, securing a section of the school for a shelter away from the student population isn't really possible. That building wasn't designed for that. The doors, you know, unless you post security at each of the points of those doors 24/7, you wouldn't be able to keep those populations. And that scenario could exist, right? Where power is back at the high school, but and out in the northern part of town, as an example. And we would still want to be able to, or possibly have the need to continue to shelter residents, but also we'd want to get students back in school. So that having that separation, having a separate facility and using the YMCA would be beneficial in that regard. Things that you consider when you think about a shelter site: ADA compliance, parking, safe from flooding, falling trees and power lines, not near hazardous materials, not threatened by dam or reservoir failure. YMCA fits the bill for all of these. It's a very well-maintained facility. You know, there's guidance that's set by the Red Cross about capacity, 40 square foot per shelteree. Obviously, there's plenty of room in abundance there at the Y. It has a lot of facilities for washing. The YMCA does. These are guidance that, you know, is out there. And then obviously having the area sufficient water, which it does, obviously, and then area for food distribution, which it has a nice little kitchen there. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, what is our food plan? And it would be MREs initially. We don't want to initially be in the business of cooking and preparing food, although we're further researching a more robust plan around that. And then obviously the big thing that was well with the shelters, we want controlled ingress and egress, which the YMCA has with its main lobby, and ability for us to do background checks and security screening. So I'll pause there for any questions. I'm just speaking to the shelter side of it and why it's a good facility.
Want to ask questions on this? Go ahead,
Russ,
Kathleen.
what would be the capacity that you would think could be maintained at the Y?
The Y far exceeds what we have equipment to be able to do a shelter in cots alone. If you look at their gymnasium, it's capable of housing well over 200 people. We started, Phil and I started to see what equipment we as a municipality have. We're very fortunate. Jim Cole in his time, I believe it was back in 2012, did purchase a large number of cots, bedding, pillows and things like that, which are in the basement of Saks. And they're actually in good shape. So this fall, we're going to go through a project, inventory it, replace anything that needs replacing. But the capacities of the building exceed what we're able to do with equipment, which is we're very fortunate we have the equipment we have now. But yeah, it definitely exceeds that.
And would this be conceived as strictly for New Canaan residents, or if another town, for instance, Wilton, had some sort of disaster and they needed housing? Is that something that would be contemplated, or would it be strictly for New Canaanites?
Our initial would be to support our own residents, of course. However, there are regional shelters, and the Department of Emergency Management, Homeland Security has an ESF with shelter and mass care. They are partnered with the American Red Cross, and those shelters, I believe, are in Stamford, Bridgeport, and I can't remember where the other ones are. But that's something they set up regionally. We're concerned if we have a major incident where we are isolated, which happens, right, with a hurricane, especially the first few days, we just end up completely blocked off from everyone else with trees down, that we want to be able to provide that emergent shelter for a week or two until people can find a place to go. Heaven forbid their houses are flooded or have a tree through them or whatever else.
Okay.
And as Kevin said correctly, the Lapham is not a shelter. It has no showers.
Right.
The only buildings we have are the schools.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great idea. It's not a new idea. For Selectman Malazi and me and, Mike Handler talking about this for, partnering with the Y.
Didn't we use it?
Yeah, we did use it, and that was the old Y, and now the Y is even better. So, I guess the only question I have, Kevin, is, do we need to memorialize this partnership in terms of?
We've been working on an agreement. Obviously, part of the concern is the Y has a business that they operate, not
Right.
only their their own facility programs, but also they have a nursery school that wants to operate in the event that, say, part of the town is out, but they, the Y would like to accommodate their nursery school as well as Stanford Hospital.
Stanford Health.
Stanford
is
Health
on-site.
has a on-site facility. So the great thing about the Y is we probably can accommodate an emergency at the same time that some of their operations operate.
Right.
And but the one thing they don't have is a emergency generator.
Right.
Uh,
That was always the issue in prior years, is that
Correct.
The
We
co-
have-
the
yes, we've
gen-
served as a
the
shelter
gen set, yeah.
times before, and acquired a generator to do it, a diesel operated generator. But that, however, there's some guesswork associated with
Right.
that and planning and some luck, frankly, right? You have to not only say, are the weather forecasters correct that there will be a hurricane, but will the power be out? You have to make the decision to get the generator long before the event occurs so that it's on its way from whatever the location is. It has to be connected by an electrician, and it has to work, and it has to be fueled. And you have to not only have the fuel that it comes with, but then maybe refuel it. So it's not a reliable
Right.
setup for an emergency shelter. This project that we're talking about is an energy project that will help the Y to recover from COVID. When COVID hit, we had to close for 3 months. And a lot of our members were very generous and became donors and kept paying their membership fee throughout the time that we were closed. As time went by, though, fewer were able to do that, and we lost more than half of our membership. Since then, we have been thrilled to see so many people come back, and we see it as a validation of the great services that we provide for this community. However, we're still not back to pre-COVID numbers. We're about 80% at this point.
Marty,
As
you have a PowerPoint. Do you want to go through your?
I think I can just cover it
Okay,
for you, and I
okay.
know you've
We-
seen
on
it
your
already,
tablets, we have
but-
a PowerPoint. But
Yeah. As the town knows from operating so many buildings, you don't pay less just because fewer people are walking the halls. So not only have we had to incur the operation expenses that we always had, but because of inflation, they've gone up, frankly, and it's costing us more and more to operate that building. So when we think about financial security going forward for this community organization, we think about this energy project, then the town knows the benefits of those energy projects, especially using CHP. Not only is there a payback, but there is a reduction in our operating expenses going forward. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for the Y that we would save. So by doing this project, you're providing this benefit to one of the town's largest community organizations, to a charity, as well as positioning the town to have this reliable infrastructure for a shelter.
Margaret, how many members do you have at 80%?
It's about 4,000 membership units at this point. Yeah. So, I mean, we're not only have people come back, but we have so many new residents in town that we've seen a lot of new faces. And I have to say, as people come back to the Y, it's like a homecoming every time somebody comes back and says, "Oh, I've missed it so much here." And you see each other, and we appreciate the sense of community that we get at the Y. I'd also like to point out that although many people in town think of the Y as pay your membership fee and come to work out at our gym or swim in our pools, we do so much for the community, just for the community at large. We host physician lectures like Kevin has participated in recently, vaccination clinics, family fun days for all members of the community. We do community exercise classes at Kiwanis Park through a partnership with the library. We lead hikes through the land trust properties, just open to the community. We have programs for people suffering from chronic diseases, cancer and diabetes and Parkinson's disease, and we don't charge for, and they're open to anyone, not just members. So the Y really is a leading charity in town. So helping us to be financially stable long into the future and benefiting the town by getting this shelter that the town needs is really a win-win and a very appropriate use of ARPA funds. The project is not going to be an inexpensive one, and there's an increase in the expense in order to provide and acquire that black start capability, the generator capability. A CHP unit does not function as a generator. You've got to pay extra to get that function. So the town's assistance through ARPA funds would help us to cover that additional expense that's necessary. When we look at the payback for this project, I have to say, without the town's support, it would be more difficult for us to justify acquiring an on-site 24/7 generator. But with the town's assistance, and because we feel it's so consistent with our mission to be able to provide the town with a shelter, we would want to undertake that project. I won't sit here and say that we won't operate as a shelter unless you help us, because we will. If we can do it, we will. We've done it before and we'll do it again. It's what we do. It's who we are. We're here for the community, to serve the community. So we'll do that. But this can help it happen sooner, easier, and get us there faster. Absolutely.
For those who don't know Margaret, Margaret's a resident of New Canaan. She was a practicing attorney and was on the board of the Y before she stepped down to become CEO a year and a half ago.
A little over a year ago.
And I'm a member of the Y, full disclosure. So I'm not biased here, but I think the Y is a tremendous asset to the town. And Mark, so just the specifics of the program itself in rough terms, just so we don't get into the weeds, but Mark's been working on a plan which has been discussed by the board at the Y. Mark, why don't you just say a few words about with the microphone in front of you?
Sure. Yep. So we took a step back and started an iterative series of meetings with Russ to evaluate exactly what critical aspects of the building would need to be powered to comply with the intent to be a community shelter. And so that informed to some degree the sizing of the equipment. Typically, combined heat and power systems are designed to what we call design to the thermal load. So we all know we need electricity, but we don't necessarily need the thermal energy all the time. So we want to optimize the efficiency of the equipment, typically size it just to the thermal load, which means that we're not always sizing to the electric load. In this case, to provide black start or to allow the equipment to run continuously with no particular time limit in the event of a catastrophic storm or power failure, we have to do two things. One is we have to upsize the amount of equipment because we wanted to be able to address all of the critical loads, including items like the parking lot lights and the elevators. So you're getting, if you will, a larger generator, A. B, you have a separate electrical infrastructure. So you're familiar with the concept of a transfer switch. It may be if at home, if you have a standby generator, there's an automatic transfer switch or ATS, and it moves the electrical, disconnects the building or the home from the grid. Point being, when they're working on the power lines, they don't want the linemen don't want to be surprised to find that the lines are charged by power coming out of the CHP system to feed the lines. So there's basically a apparatus that disconnects the electrical service and reconnects it to critical loads. That happens internal to the building. In the case of the YMCA, there are basically two electrical services. There's the new and the old building. So therein lies some of the cost. Additionally, the equipment is designed to provide efficient and clean power and to repurpose the waste heat. So there are environmental attributes inherently to running a CHP system. You're generating the power and the thermal energy at the point of consumption, so you're not reliant on the electric grid, if you will, but you remain connected to the grid. So the grid's sort of your backup. At a high level, from an energy infrastructure perspective, this project is going to help alleviate some of the grid constraint in New Canaan. A little bit complex, but you're familiar with the concept that periodically throughout the summer, and Bill Osman, if he's still here, could speak to it, the generator kicks on for this building quite often because of the frailty or the lack of capacity. Eversource says that we're at the end of the line. So this building, the YMCA, is the largest energy customer in town, slightly larger than the high school, 2.6 million kilowatt hours a year. So it's going to take a significant amount of electrical load off of the grid, so inherently freeing up electrons to support other buildings. Hard to measure that, but the concept here is that we're going to be producing, unlike a generator that just produces electricity and you hope it starts up on time and it's designed to run for a limited period. This is designed to run continuously, purpose-built with a regular maintenance schedule, is designed to provide baseload electricity for the building for the next 20 years plus, as well as thermal energy. So it's providing electricity and heat, and it's the same principle and infrastructure that supports Greenwich Hospital, Google, data centers, and military facilities right now. And its primary source of fuel is the availability of contiguous natural gas. That's our most up to date, our most current infrastructure in town. And again, it remains connected to the grid and it supplements its power from grid power if needed from time to time. So that's
Questions for Mark and Margaret?
So this is a $2 million project all in.
budgetary estimates, anticipating inflation and necessary compliance upgrades, engineering. So that's a full, yes.
Yeah.
So that's a fully contemplated design build that includes engineering, equipment, trades.
And so the $400,000 would be, so it is a public-private partnership. Are you guys doing a separate outreach campaign? Would you be doing that?
It would, yeah, and then looking for grants, looking for government assistance to support this type of program.
There's green bank financing for nonprofits at 2% interest, so that, you know, that they will probably, they can finance it from the, but the savings are on CHP are immediate, and unlike an emergency generator where there's really no payback.
Right. It's just there.
It's a big
if you need it.
investment.
Yeah,
And
this is
a payback. And
I think she said hundreds of thousands of dollars savings.
yeah, I should mention too that, you know, we threw out the $400,000 number a few months ago. The argument could be made, it should be $500,000, but I'll leave that to the Board of Finance to work on this and decide whether they want to stick with the $400,000. But I think there's a lot more work the Board of Finance want to do to get their arms around this project, because it is a significant number, but also one that, you know, we've done a lot of work, but, you know, before the Board of Finance and Town Council sign off, they probably are going to want to do more due diligence.
So Mark, you're talking about the benefits of taking the Y off the grid,
Yes,
benefits to the town of New Canaan,
right. Yes,
including town hall.
right. Right.
Can you expand upon that a bit?
Yes. So.
How does that help the average New Canaan?
Right.
Not just
So sort
who's
of
coming to town
drilling-
hall and,
drilling
you know,
down
like-
into that, but just sort of is at at a high level, we've got somewhat of a frail grid, if you will. We're sort of at the end of the line. And the anticipated requirement for electric energy, especially in towns like New Canaan, is anticipated to double over the next 12 years as we plug in more, as we move towards electric heat pumps. We look at the new federal act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's promoting electric source heat pumps, geothermal systems, EVs, lots of EVs of all sorts and sizes. That's all requiring more demand on the grid. There's no immediate plans to upgrade the infrastructure. In fact, we're taking off power plants, Millstone in Westchester, and the dirty coal-fired peaker plants like those in Bridgeport. So where are we going to get the electricity? So this immediately identifies one of the largest energy targets in town, energy consumers, and takes them substantially off the electric grid. Now they do remain connected, so there's sort of a redundancy there, but it takes a lot of the baseload energy requirements off the grid, which will have ancillary effects to theoretically at a high level provide more electrons for other critical buildings. But that is the biggest site.
Most people don't realize too, the amount of energy that's lost between a plant making electricity and by the time it gets delivered, you know, you lose a tremendous amount of energy
In the transmission.
in the transmission, which is wasted. And so having distributed energy
Up
is
to
something.
50% line loss.
Right.
So it's a more efficient, just electrically separate from cost and maintenance. It's more efficient to be generating electricity at the point of consumption. The elegance of this equipment is that as you're doing that, like with a car engine or a boiler or a generator, you're exhausting a lot of waste heat. But this technology recaptures the waste heat for beneficial purposes to heat the building and the pools. So not only do they have the biggest electrical baseload of any building, slightly higher than the high school because of their contiguous operations, but they have more thermal requirements than any other building in town. So instead of exhausting that heat to the atmosphere, they can actually use it to maintain the temperature of their pools and the space. So it's a high efficiency play. And unlike investing in a generator, which you hope you run, but it's very hard to support a payback or an ROI on a generator. Not that there's no value to resiliency, but it's hard to put a dollar cost price But in this case, running a CHP system, because it's more efficient, it reduces the amount of electricity we're buying or wasting from the grid and exhausting heat. So the net effective is there's a measurable financial payback, six-figure annual payback that allows the Y to reinvest that money into their community programs versus paying Eversource.
Thank you for this. I mean, certainly, I think goes without saying that the emergency shelter makes perfect sense. And so, just put that right up front in terms of that making perfect sense. And then as you think about it as an investment for the town, whether through ARPA funds or other funds, I don't know, Russ, how much it would cost if we were to sort of insure ourselves by having an emergency shelter, but I would think $400,000 makes a ton of sense for however long the period might be where you're secure in terms of having this as an emergency shelter. So that financially makes sense to me. Just give me a sense, if you will, the YMCA, would they be thinking about a CHP regardless of whether or not there was a contribution from, I mean, you were going down this path anyway, and then, okay,
Yes, it's something we'd like to do.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
For financial security going forward. It will
absolutely.
pay back and not to mention the environmental benefits. We'd like to
Exactly. Yeah.
Consume less.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then so this unit, I forget how, I mean, I've seen the ones that we've put in for the schools and the highway department, et cetera. How big is this unit, the CHP, and where is it going to be located?
So it will be located in the alley between the Velez pool in the back. I'm going to call it the older pool in the building. So there's a service alley that we've identified as a good host location. So there's several parts and pieces to it. The electrical components and transfer switch, that's all in the building. And then the unit will be located in an area that it's accessible for service. Most likely in that alleyway. The size of the unit we're looking at based on cost, availability, and maintenance costs. Some equipment costs more, but over the term it's less expensive to maintain. So we're evaluating different manufacturers now, but roughly the size of a small container, if you can imagine the size of a pod. So if you could see this sort of maybe 10 feet by 20 feet by 10 feet tall, roughly. And in that sound suppressed box, there will be the equipment, but that's where they're looking to locate it. You want it to be located close to the electrical service. It's sort of a dance, close to the electrical service also, but easily so that you could plumb it into the building to supply the thermal loop, the heat.
Great. And what was the timing? You may have already asked this question, but what was the timing of getting something like this started and fully installed?
Starting planning and evaluation now, and working with Russ Grimes to identify, the areas, and then looking at the base load and collecting data right now. But we've started the research and due diligence. The concept of it being black start is about not the CHP unit, but about that transfer
Generator
switch,
part.
controls, relays, and because we have two services, electrical upgrades to make it foolproof and code compliant. So it would be likely that a client would look at CHP, let's say a small CHP system, a standard CHP system, for its own benefits, but when looking at the resiliency aspects for a shelter, it both upgrades the system and upgrades switchgear. So it's at least a 25% cost upgrade to address all those features so that it can run even when the lines go down.
And so timing again, is this a 2-year project or?
As soon as we can start to secure the initial seed funds and complete design, but it's something we could certainly deliver within 12 months.
And arrange financing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. The Y has already engaged MHR.
Yeah.
So we've already contracted with them to begin this due diligence, as you said, to put together and understand what the system needs to look like.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think we covered it. Russ, do you have anything further?
Nothing further on my end.
Okay. Any further questions?
No.
So we're passing this on to the Board of Finance for their due diligence and then to the town council. Thank you. Do we need any further discussion about the IT, the Mead Park flexi pave, the $200,000 tree planting for the parks and roads, or the VFW?
And on the tree planting, I noted on our tablet, Dick Bond.
Yeah.
1998, this came up and, advice to plant more trees on South Avenue.
You
So
know,
24 years ago.
every time we paid a tree warden to take trees down, we never plant trees.
Yeah.
And especially around Wavy Park, there's a number of areas where we have to, trees don't live forever. And some of the trees over there are destroying the infrastructure around the house, and we have to make plans for the future. So
Just had a couple questions. I agree, the trees, good project, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I just, one question I got from a constituent on the Mead Park pathway. And Tiger, if you just had a quick moment. The question was, apparently, are the bridges, do they have steps? And are we thinking about making those ADA compliant?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Perfect. You're no longer needed. Thank you. No, but is that part of the ARPA funding too, that to make those ADA compliant? So that's part of the whole project, the path. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's great. All answers should be that easy. And then,
and I should say that
Yeah.
that project is conceptual. We need more work to do. We're doing a survey of the whole park, which was Tiger and Maria have been on me for 2 years to do. So, but we need to know where the boundaries are of that park. So we don't infringe upon the neighbors. And but I think making downtown more walkable, especially given the density of the condos and the view and everything down there. We'd like to get people off of roadways, walking and
Yeah,
into
that's great.
paths designed for their protection, safety.
And then just one other question on the IT and the cybersecurity. And this came up with Chris at our last meeting. And it's just as I went through it, and just as we pass along to the Board of Finance, just ask them to kindly consider what's capital, what's operating of those costs, because I don't want to mask what will be.
Todd will be all over this.
Todd will be all over it.
Todd
Okay.
Lavieri.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
This is his field. So believe me,
Yeah.
we will get good.
So I'll just
diligence.
finish and say, yeah, so that we want to make sure that we're not masking what is ongoing operating
Sure.
costs. And I absolutely, absolutely agree that we need to cover our cybersecurity expenses. And this is obviously a great project, but want to make sure that it's reflected in the budget as much as it is covered by ARPA.
Right.
Thank you.
And the VFW, again, this is
Easy one.
designed to fill the hole. They do have a need to come up with a funding plan going forward. And there's been discussions with the Exchange Club and others to try to get a more stable annual funding plan. So I think, passing these on to the Board of Finance and the Town Council makes a lot of sense. The IT is 250, Mead Park Flexi Pave is 300, tree planting is 200, VFW is 15,000, and YMCA is 400,000. Recommended by us. I wouldn't mind seeing that go up if the Board of Finance agrees. And otherwise, that still leaves us. I don't have my summary sheet.
172,300.
That's what's left.
Say the number again, 570. I think the one thing, obviously, this big red mark that keeps appearing something and the town players.
We
building.
are meeting, we've been having meetings with the town players. We're gonna meet with the tomorrow we meet with the Community Foundation. We're trying to put together a plan.
We approved that.
Back in January.
Yeah. It's the other town bodies.
Sorry, you're having a meeting. Yeah.
No, I didn't know if you needed Chris, so I asked him to come up when you mentioned you had a question about it. So we have a meeting tomorrow with them.
Okay. So it's still a pending item for ARPA, as far as we know. For
Oh, yeah,
town players.
very much so.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
okay, good.
It's
Yeah.
BOS approved, but is it BOF, is it a BOF or town council?
Neither.
Well, neither. Also, we're having a meeting this afternoon with Silver Hill on the progress of their program. And we had a terrific meeting yesterday with Wavy Care Center on their telehealth. Which is, so these ARPA projects are very
They're
exciting.
really making an impact.
Exactly.
The idea.
I therefore move we approve these recommendations as I just summarized for the next round of ARPA funds. And I, after a second,
Second here.
further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mark, Margaret, Russ, thank you. That leaves,
Good luck with the project.
Yeah.
tax overpayments. There are some automobile repayments on our tablets. I move we approve the tax overpayments.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Legal fees. I would note for those watching the meeting that our legal fee budget for this year is $250,000 down from last year. Although that may be debatable given our ongoing 30G litigations, but anyway. I move we approve the legal fees on our tablets. Any questions?
Second here.
Further discussion.
Yeah, just one correction on that, the cover sheet there, that the fiscal year to date, I think should be reflected as 7/1/22 to 6/30/23. And right now, I think it has the previous year,
I think that's right.
just a typo.
Josh,
I think that's right.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I don't have any comments.
Perhaps if you would be kind enough just to share, if you know, a timeline on a couple of things involving cell coverage. So first would be, is the siting council due to meet anytime soon regarding 1837? So the Connecticut Siting Council.
The Siting
and-
Council last week had their third session.
Oh, they did.
And they've agreed to a fourth session. I think it's September. First week of September.
Okay,
That should be completed and I expect that approval. Because there's nothing significant that's been raised in those.
was there any reason why they postponed it or delayed it? Was it?
Some of the neighbors are asking a lot of questions,
Okay,
which is their right, but
so that's September, and then about getting started in terms of talking about the other alternatives.
so I'm meeting at 10 o'clock with Ray. We will be coming back here. We have this, as I said, there's actually two processes here. We have to address the lease agreement, which
Mhm.
is somewhat different than was approved in the master lease that was approved, but not signed in 2016.
Right.
Because, the decision was made really to do individual leases. Every location is different in terms of the value of that location to the carriers and to Homeland Towers, and their economics changes based upon how much work has to be done for access roads or whatever. So, the idea of a master lease was kind of maybe a good idea, but really doesn't work in practice. In fairness to them. And so Doug Lamonti has completed his review. I'll be happy to share that with you and then have a discussion about that. But the document which I sent to the town council members, which is the plan that was agreed to in August of 2016, contemplated a west tower. And as I said before, when you have 47 acres sitting in the location where the carriers want to have a tower, see a need for a tower, it's pretty hard to ignore that 47 acres. And so we will be back in September for that process, probably continue into October.
East side as well, proposals?
East side is, I expect news very soon. And hopefully by the time we convene by September 6th, we'll have news. And then we also have center. And actually, I've been talking further with people. I mean, some people have criticized us for having, this plan contemplated 5 towers or 6. We do have a need for a tower up in the center, north of town. There are pockets in town where there's no cell service. And besides the fact, this plan also contemplated that perhaps we would do some small cell or DOS in some low-lying areas where the valleys, despite completing this macro site plan, there will be areas that because of their topography being very low in a valley, won't get good service. I think Verizon has now installed 7 small cells in town, primarily downtown for capacity and toward the Merritt Parkway. But and AT&T has done none of that because AT&T actually has been more aggressive. We also have, I mean, I think I've talked about last time, the Country Club is agreeing to have that tower replaced with a tower that will accommodate Verizon. Verizon wants to do the tower. And this tower own is agreeable, but we trying to get these things done among parties. Anyway, so
Okay.
it's all part of the picture.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Would you be amenable to, and I think we discussed this briefly at one of our prior meetings, of having a kind of an all hands meet, a special meeting to discuss the West School site where Ray could come and
Oh,
parents could come and could, you know.
Oh, sure, absolutely. You know, I think,
Hash it
you know,
out,
Ray,
yeah.
yeah, Ray, we retained Ray to work for us
Right.
on the tower. So,
Right.
And, you know, a lot of the arguments that are being made have been made for 15, 20 years in Canaan against cell towers. And,
When was that report done? What was that date on that one? I think I downloaded it, but I just want to double check.
this was their RFP response, which then was
2016. Okay.
approved in August of 2016.
Great. That's all I have.
Anything?
No, I mean, I, again, I just wanted to confirm that, you know, you would be amenable to, you know, having a special meeting on the West School site. September, October.
Okay. I move we adjourn at 9:37.
Second year.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Have a good day, everyone.
You going tonight?
Yes.
Question for me. When we have time, so